I have a prayer and meditation right now. Reverence and respect for human nature is at the core of the Unitarian Universalist faith. We believe that all the dimensions of our being carry the potential to do good. We celebrate the gifts of being human, our intelligence and capacity for observation and reason, our senses and ability to appreciate beauty, our creativity, our feelings and emotions. We cherish our bodies as well as our souls. We can use our gifts to offer love, to work for justice, to heal injury, to create pleasure for ourselves and others. I will take a few moments for meditation, please. We have a responsive reading, number 598. Without hate. May every creature abound in well-being and peace.
The short and the medium-sized, the mean and the great.
May every living being, seen or unseen, those dwelling far off, those living nearby, those already born, those waiting to be born,
may all attain inward peace.
Let no one deceive another. Let no one despise another in any situation.
Let no one, from antipathy or hatred, wish evil to anyone at all.
Just as a mother, with her own life, protects her only child from hurt, so within yourself foster a limitless concern for every living creature.
Display a heart of boundless love for all the world in all its height and depth and broad extent.
Love unrestrained, without hate or enmity.
Then, as you stand or walk, sit or lie, until overcome by drowsiness, devote your mind entirely to this. It is known as living the life divine.
Hello. I have met Reverend Kate a few times, obviously, since she talked to me about this, but I've heard, but I haven't ever heard her speak or give a sermon, but I've heard that she's great. So I'm hoping to be able to follow in her footsteps. Again, my name is Chris Moore, and I work at Independence House, and my job is prevention, education, and outreach. This is a very tough subject to talk about. Most people don't want to talk about domestic and sexual violence. We have tabled here several times over the last couple of years on your front lawn, and just really thank you for your support in being a voice for survivors of domestic and sexual violence. I don't know how important you know that is, but I'm here to tell you that today. My job is to really get people to talk about it. And by talking about it, we take the shame and blame away from the victim. The only person that should be shamed or take blame is the abuser. So the title of today's service, Promoting Safe and Healthy Relationships. We can look to the Unitarian Universal principles. The first principle is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And the second principle is the inherent, the justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. We can look to those to know that we have the tools as Unitarian Universalists to promote safe and healthy relationships. But sometimes it's hard to know how to use those tools. So knowing how to use those tools is what I hope to give you today. But first, for those of you who might not know all the services of Independence House, I thought I would give you just a brief overview. We, first of all, are not a shelter, in case anybody, we still get asked that after 36 years. With the name of the agency, it's a very, what do I want to say? It's very easy to go there as a house, but we're not a shelter. Our primary service is counseling and sharing resources. People who come through our doors have more challenges than just getting out of the abusive situation. Our services are free. They're for women, children, and men. Most people think of this as a issue that only affects women. We know that men are also abused. The statistics right now are that about 85% of victims are women, but men don't usually come forward because of a lot of cultural things, but just want to put that out there. I'll be talking today as the stereotypical man as an abuser, woman as the victim, but we know that men are abused as well. We offer our services to all ages, sexual identities, all cultures. And we have offices, our main office is Hyannis, but we have offices in Falmouth, Orleans, and Provincetown. I actually cover the office in Provincetown once a week. So it's over, does anyone know where it is? It's over at the new, I don't know how new it is, the community center. We rent an office from the Council on Aging. So we have three major programs: domestic violence, sexual violence, and court. And our domestic violence, obviously, services around counseling, but we have a children who witness violence, a teen program, food pantry, and we have housing stabilization and support groups. Research shows that children who witness abuse are just as affected adversely as those who actually receive abuse. So it's really important as far as getting children into counseling at a young age. Our teens, we know that won't come walking through a door, won't pick up the phone, and so we have a teen website and a chat room, a live chat room, knowing that technology is the way teens kind of communicate today. In our sexual violence program, we have a 24-hour hotline, 24-hour medical accompaniment where we go to the hospital to be a support for the victim of assault. And we also, prevention is under the sexual assault program, and I'll go into a few more details a little bit later. In our court program, people can go to the courts, any of the courts, and talk to our advocates around restraining orders and give you all the information that you might need to know. We do a lot of outreach and collaboration. We know that domestic violence happens in every community. So we're very involved in the different aspects of communities. We actually have office hours once a week here at Howe. We are in the Yarmouth Police Department. We belong to a community health network. Mashpee Council on Aging and the Yarmouth Council on Aging, we're connected to them. So we will go anywhere and speak to anybody about it. But first we want to know that today we assume that everybody here believes that abuse to another human being is wrong. We can't assume that everyone in this meeting house has been free of abuse. And so for those individuals, I hope that you have had or are on the road to a healing journey, and know that abuse is never the fault of the victim. And many adults come to Independence House never having had counsel, but having had abuse at a younger age. And they've been carrying that trauma with them this whole time. So just know that we serve people at every stage of their healing. It's just important and necessary to remember that abuse is never the fault of the victim, never, and that no one deserves to be treated as less than they are. No one. So promoting safe and healthy relationships, is that possible? When I was putting thoughts together, I thought of that term, got consent. It's been used a lot around in different places, but we ask ourselves, did a victim of abuse consent to being harassed, intimidated, demeaned, humiliated? Did a victim of sexual assault give consent to being raped? No, obviously not. But those who don't understand the dynamics of sexual and domestic violence unknowingly, unconsciously believe that their friend, daughter, mother, brother, uncle has some kind of control over the behavior of an abuser, which is, absolutely not true. But why? Why do we have these thoughts around who's to blame? Well, we receive a lot of cultural messages every day in our media that blame the victim. Why did you provoke him? Why did you leave? Why didn't you leave? Why did you get drunk? Why were you wearing that sexy outfit? It goes on and on. We need to start asking, why did the abuser abuse? Instead of putting the abuse on the victim. So what's abuse? We're not talking about an argument that went awry between two people and one person was really offended by another. We're talking about a repetitive behavior that constantly demeans and dominates another. There are differences between one abusive relationship and another, but the thread that runs through all of them is power and control. One person needs to have power, and he or she needs to control, put controls in place to keep that power. Yelling, intimidation, lack of affection, demeaning language, financial control. Those are all non-physical. Most people still today think of abuse as physical, and I'm really not being abused because it's not physical. But most abuse is really non-physical, okay? So those kinds of controls keep people in their place. Most of our clients who come through the door at the very first time, their spirits are low, their self-esteem is even lower. They've been battered, mostly emotionally and verbally, sometimes physically. Their voice has been taken away, and they come with a lot of shame and blame. Ashamed that this has happened to them, and full of blame because the abuser has been telling them over and over again, I wouldn't have screamed if you had just done it my way. I wouldn't have hit you if you had just listened to me. Our jobs as counselors is to get this person into a place where they once again realize that they have a strength within them to voice their opinion, to make a decision, and to believe in themselves. We call that empowerment counseling. And our job is simply to empower. It's not to tell people what to do. So how did consent get lost in our relationships? Was it ever in the equation? Why do people abuse? Abuse is not new, as you might all know. We can go back hundreds and hundreds of years and find the philosophy that men have the right to dominate women and children. Several reasons around abuse, they all integrate. There's not one, but number one, we're still a patriarchy society. The belief that males have the given right to dominate women and children. Racism is a piece of power and control. We have a horrific history of slavery. Whites assuming to be the dominant culture. We took power over African brothers and sisters and controlled this power through harsh laws that took away equality, respect, dignity, freedom, and lives. The media, we have very strong messages in the media that are misogynist and violent. Video games, commercials, TV ads. We are a nation that has actually become numb to violence. Norway will always remember Andre Behring Breivik. Does anyone remember him? He was the man that murdered 77 people, mostly young people, at the Workers' Youth League summer camp in 2011. 1 year later, Norway was still in mourning over this one incident. As opposed to the United States, where we have school massacres quite often. We are outraged, we have vigils, we light candles, and then we wait for the next massacre to happen. So all of this combined, the violence in our world, sometimes somebody yelling and screaming at each other and we're thinking that's a regular relationship or it's what they do, it's their norm, is part of why it keeps going. The inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Clearly, those abusing do not treat a person with worth and dignity, nor with compassion. In 1979 and 1993, the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly passed a resolution to end domestic violence. Resolutions are certainly needed. Many of us have probably been involved in conferences that present resolutions. They are the resolve of individuals who envision a better future. Resolutions express moral support for the issues of the day, but they don't carry much weight unless we take action. One of my resolves today is to let you know, one person at a time, one group at a time, one community at a time, that we can be part of the solution in stopping and preventing domestic and sexual violence. Can we go back in time and change what happened? No. But we can look to the future and truly believe that we can be part of that change. Violence is a choice. Violence is a choice and therefore can be prevented. So as I have said, Independence House main service is counseling and resources. But we are charged with prevention. So we have two major prevention programs in place to look at changing social norms over time. One is called the Mentors in Violence Prevention Program. Anyone have heard of that in the news or anything? It's called the MVP program. It's in our high schools. It's a curriculum that actually it's a club that students would join. And in joining that, they take a whole day training on dating violence, sexual coercion, but mostly on bystander intervention and the red flags of what is an unhealthy relationship. And their goal then is to take that information, create one or two events throughout the school year, and bring that message of healthy relationships to the student body. Right now we have this in 5 high schools. We're working on a few more. Our goal is obviously to get it in all the high schools. But this prevention is kind of secondary prevention. Students today are already experiencing dating violence, and they might be coming from homes of the abuse. So our bigger goal is to really get into the younger grades and have curriculums that are language appropriate, but around equality and conflict resolution and diversity, things like that, that children would grow up in a different world than maybe my generation. The other primary campaign is Enough Abuse campaign. How about that? Anybody hear of that? We have a lot of work to do. Enough Abuse campaign is about stopping and preventing child sexual abuse. Okay? Child abuse is rampant in this country, and it's probably one of the most hidden crimes that we have. In this the Enough Abuse campaign, Independence House is a part of a collaboration of organizations to bring this campaign to the Cape. And we do that with different, we have curriculums that we bring in a workshop or in a workshop format, sorry, or a general forum. But number one, the purpose is to let people understand the seriousness of this issue in Massachusetts, why it's a public health problem, what keeps it secret, and what we can do to prevent it. So there's different curriculums aimed at different audiences. But the goal here is that community people step up, even if we don't have children, if we don't have young children, and know as a community that we need to be, as adults, be the forerunners of stopping this and looking at the red flags and how our children are raised in the sense of are they safe in their environment, which obviously is our goal. What we do today, though, is, and it's absolutely necessary, is we teach our children the body part names. We teach children good touch and bad touch, and who can I talk to and who can I trust. But that really puts the weight of disclosing abuse on the child. So this campaign is about community members stepping forward and really looking at their facility. Is it safe? Is there one adult that's paying a little bit too much attention to children? All those kinds of things. So this campaign is a very big piece of preventing child sexual abuse. One of the pieces in this curriculum is that there's scientific research showing that a child who is abused and gets no assistance, gets no counseling or healing, grows up possibly not feeling really good, not knowing why the abuse is over, but then not really caring, not feeling good about themselves, and making unhealthy choices. And this is related to adult health issues and such like that. So there's a scientific research around that big bell curve that I just explained. So it's really, really important that we pay attention to our children. And I'm not talking to us and you as individuals, but our service providers, our doctors, and our judges and our lawyers. When a child is acting out, it might not just be a bad child. There are no bad children. But we need to dig deeper. Why are they acting out? Why are they being a bully? It could be very real that they are also being abused. So we just really need to pay attention to our children. So what can we do? Downstairs at coffee time, I have a table with these kinds of information on there. But very, very, very simply, this particular day is really important as far as education and outreach, speaking to people, speaking to different communities. But as individuals, you could take our brochures and put them in different places that you go. You could let us know about events that are happening in your town where we might table. You can become a fan of everybody has a Facebook page. You can come to our events. There's those kinds of things that you can do to really support survivors of domestic and sexual violence. But we can also advocate individually. We all might know somebody who is going through something. Many times, people are in denial. You can suggest that they don't really need to be treated this way, and let them know of Independence House, giving them the hotline number, which again would be downstairs on the table. Once you would let them know that you're concerned for them and you give them the number, they might not jump on board. They might not, they're still in denial. But now they know that you're there for help, and they know that there's a resource. And you can listen to someone who comes to you and says they're being abused. Many times abusers keep it within the home, and outside they're really charming, wonderful citizens. And so people tend to not believe. So if somebody comes to you, you want to listen and you want to believe them. The biggest challenge and fear that people have who are going through abuse is that nobody will believe them. Very few people make this up. Okay, so we want to believe them. And as I said, we can pay attention to the behaviors of our children. Those who are bullying want power for some reason. And so we need to kind of figure out what that is before we kind of blame them for just being a bad kid. I have a quick story. It was back in this, I had a friend, she was about 20 years ago. She was in her 60s, I was in my 40s. And this event happened in the 70s, so it was way before people even talked about this subject. Her son had leukemia. He was a slight boy, pale, and he was picked on, he was bullied. So my friend Mabel went to the principal and wanted to find out what they could do about it. Now, in many situations like this, you bring that person down to the office, they get yelled at, they get detention, they get extra homework, whatever. It's all negative. What this principal did, and I wasn't there, so it's just fourth hand, but what she did was make this young man Philip's bodyguard. He was responsible for Philip. And that was really out of the box kind of thinking. And that's what we need today, to look at these children and why do they abuse. She turned that into a good thing. They became friends. Another thing you can do is bring the Enough Abuse campaign to your community. You can intervene when demeaning jokes and comments are made about women. Standing up against domestic and sexual violence is not for sissies. It's very hard because of so many messages we get about this is a family issue. This is This is somebody else's issue. But we really need to, this is our community, and we want everyone in our community to be happy and healthy. So, we as Unitarian Universalists have a history and a courage and compassion for standing up to what is wrong in our society. Domestic and sexual violence is not acceptable. And by having me here today, you have chosen to be part of that solution.